This is Viterbi Voices, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more.
Directly from our students, faculty, and other members of our engineering community. All right here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Welcome back into Viterbi Voices. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And my name is Audrey Roberts. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering here at USC.
And we are also joined by another friend from the Viterbi School. Domini, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Domini. I am a senior studying biomedical engineering from Kahului, Hawaii.
And Domini, you bring a special episode for us today, one of our bonus episodes. This was one of our recent live chats that you were a host of, correct? So tell us what they're about to hear.
Yeah, so we had a live chat last Sunday where we had a panel of female engineering students in Viterbi. We had a nice mix of majors, and the whole kind of premise and the whole theme was to discuss our experiences as women in engineering, both in the classroom and in industry in our internships.
This is great. How many women did you have on the panel?
We had 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. It was great. It's also available on YouTube if you want to check that out and watch the video of it. YouTube.com/Viterbi Student. It's a fantastic discussion about women and their experiences and what they thought and what they expected and challenges that they've encountered and ways that they've created success and also built communities. So let's get out of the way and let Domini take it over in this recording of our recent live chat for women in engineering.
First things first, we want to welcome each of you to the Viterbi Women in Engineering live chat, brought to you by us, real-life engineering students who were in your shoes not too long ago. And with that, I will introduce myself. My name is Domini, and I will be your host for tonight. I am a senior from Kahului, Hawaii, studying biomedical engineering with a minor in classical perspectives.
Hi everyone, my name is Peril. I am a senior in electrical engineering with a focus in electromagnetics, and I'm also going to be doing a progressive degree, which basically is like an additional year, and I'll get my master's out of it, and also in electrical engineering, and I'm from San Diego, California.
Hi, I'm Trisha. I'm a sophomore studying aerospace engineering, and I am from Moorpark, California.
Hi everyone, my name is Randy. I'm studying electrical and computer engineering. I'm a senior. I transferred here, and I'm from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Inez. I am a senior studying industrial and systems engineering with an information systems track, and I'm from San Diego, California.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ava. I'm pursuing my bachelor's and a progressive master's degree in astronautical engineering, and I'm from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia. I'm a junior studying computer science games, and I'm from Columbus, Ohio.
Awesome. Okay, well, now it is time to submit your questions. So if you are on the webinar, we encourage you to submit questions through the Q&A feature you see at the below or at the bottom of your screen. And if you are viewing this from YouTube, you can email us your questions to vstudent@usc.edu for answers at a later time. We want you all to know that a few years ago, we were all in the same exact position you're in now, applying to colleges and trying to decide which college will be a positive environment for us as female engineering students. And that's why we're here to answer your questions and speak about our honest experiences as female engineering students. We can talk about female role models, involvements on campus, and whatever else you are interested in learning more about. I see we already have some questions, so thank you so much for submitting those. So with that, let's jump into our first question for our panelists here. What were your initial thoughts about studying engineering as a female student? And did you have any concerns about being a female in engineering before coming to college? So I guess kind of a two-part question here. Maybe Peril, you want to start us off?
I think I honestly didn't really think much about being a woman in engineering until I actually got here, and I realized, in EE or ECE specifically, the ratio isn't that great. But the caveat to that is you end up forming a really tight bond with the women who you're with in your classes. And I didn't really I never really experienced anything that was like outrightly sexist or anything like that. So I really didn't think about it. And my professors are all wonderful. I did end up having quite a few female professors this year in EE, which has been awesome, which has been absolutely awesome. But yeah, I would say I didn't really think about it much until I got here and realized that it's not all that different. There are a few things here and there, but those things are everywhere. So yeah.
I can add on to that real quick. I think, especially before coming into college, in my physics classes in high school, they were there was a big ratio of men to women, even in those classes. So I was under the impression that engineering would be much the same, but I've experienced the same thing that Pearl has. The other women in your classes you get really close with, and I think it's just a great bond you create with them.
I think I can also add on. I went to an all-girls school for high school, and my computer science teachers were all women, and they always warned me when you go out to college and the real world, there's going to be a sexual gap you have to beware of. And I was very scared, but USC has a 50-50 pretty much of women to men ratio, and it hasn't been as scary as I thought it would be at all. So.
Yeah, I guess going off of that, I know you all are different majors, and I think because we're different majors, we might have different experiences in our classes. So for example, as a biomedical engineering student, my classes are actually more women than men. So can you guys talk about the gender makeup of your classes? Is it a split 50-50, or do you find it's actually more, it's male dominated?
Yeah, I can start us off. So I'm an industrial and systems engineer. There are two tracks. One is operations and one is information systems. That's not really relevant until you start getting to your upper division classes. But I would say for industrial and systems across both tracks, it's a pretty even ratio, I think, probably compared to maybe a few of the other engineering disciplines at USC. So I would also say that it wasn't something big that I noticed. It was definitely something that I was looking for in a university, to have a higher percentage of women in engineering. And so I definitely have a lot of girlfriends or just female or women peers in my classes.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo what Pearl mentioned about the ECE courses being very heavily male dominated. However, those of us who identify as women in that space are very close. We're all on a sort of first name basis. So I think that has helped us a lot in terms of just being there for one another.
I think to add on to that in terms of the ratio, to give you an actual number, I think my year was kind of more a 13% of women in our classes, freshman year, just off the bat. But and it does get worse as you get into upper divisions you specify. That's just only because your class size drops down to 15. And there have been classes where I've been the only woman in my classes, but that I wouldn't say that has at all discouraged me from speaking up and reaching out to professors if I do ever come across a situation. But none of that has ever happened. And Randy is very, I think in EE, when I walked into class and saw the girls that were there, we immediately kind of got together and formed a group me and called it EE Girls, and we kind of formed a really good friendship off of that and did study groups. So there is a really strong bond that comes with being the few girls in your major, which is really nice as well. So it shouldn't be a deterrence to be the only girl in your class. I don't think it should.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I guess besides just having that strong bond, did any of you have other programs that you're part of that you were able to get close to other female engineering students, or other resources that kind of helped you as a female in your classes or just in engineering?
I definitely have something to say about that. I joined the Society of Women Engineers my freshman year. That was one of the first things I did, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. It really gives you a community of other women engineers on campus, and it's a place where you can find other incredibly talented and motivated women, and it's just incredible to be with them. And I was also a part of their ambassador program, and that also allowed me to get very close with freshmen and sophomores who were also in the organization. And through that, I was able to meet some of my really closest friends. And I think if you're looking for a space, even if your major does not have a lot of women, speaking from an aerospace major, there was in my intro class about 7 women compared to 30 kids in our class. So it was quite a disparity there. But when you join something like Society of Women Engineers, it really bridges that gap and gives you a place where you can feel feel included and feel like very a part of campus.
Yeah, one plus on that astro aero mechie kind of perspective. I know that especially for my incoming class, there was a noticeable gender ratio imbalance among my peers, and it became even more noticeable for upperclassmen when I was a freshman as well. Path in my freshman and sophomore year was more geared towards student design teams or looking towards research. But I think what I found in my junior year when I became a woman in engineering mentor was that having the opportunity to talk to those younger students and being that friendly face that they can see in an RTH or at USC is really invaluable, and it is something I wish I became more involved in when I was a underclassman. I think the really great thing about women in engineering or SWE is that they not only are able to pair you up with peers who might have similar experiences as you or are taking similar classes, but they also get you in that mindset of being able to network with your peers and be involved in career advancement, which might be difficult in like a traditional student design team or research group setting.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ava and Trisha. I think I also was part of the Society of Women Engineers, and I also was an ambassador my freshman year. So I can definitely vouch for the fact that SWE does an incredible job of developing, especially like leadership skills at early kind of age in college. So definitely appreciate SWE. So I'm actually going to take a question. Here we have Abby Frank. Thank you, Abby, for submitting a question about professors. She's asking, are professors easily accessible? And I'm going to spin that a little bit and ask about your female professors. And what have your interactions been like? Are there any female professors that were your favorite or you had really special kind of interactions with?
I can go if no one else wants to take that right off the bat. I actually just started doing research for my undergraduate thesis with Professor Mata Modagam, and I took her class EE3, that's 370, which is an electromagnetics course, first one you take as an ECE student, and she's been absolutely incredible. She sat me down for like my first meeting where we're going to work out my hours that I'm going to work throughout the week, and she asked me the question. She's like trying to like asking me things like, oh, like how much do you want to work? Like, do you have any other jobs? Are you trying to get credits for this, or do you want to get paid? And I was like, oh, I'm like indifferent. Like, I'm not looking for anything specific. I'm just trying to like get some research done and get my thesis done and get the credits for that. And like told her like, oh, I'd probably work like 10 to 15 hours a week. And she's like, well, if you're gonna do credits for 2 credits, then you're gonna get paid for the rest that you're doing. I'm not gonna let you go unpaid. You're my intern and you have worth. I feel like as women, we don't really asked to get paid very often, and I'm going to pay you whether you like it or not. And like that was like I think the best interaction I've had. And also in general, professors are very open to talking to students. I get coffee with quite a few of my professors actually, just to chat, and it's a really good experience. And I absolutely love working with Professor Mogadam too this semester.
Yeah, I'd love to share about like I said, I'm an industrial and systems major right now, but I actually came into Viterbi as an environmental engineering major. And all of us take an introductory course specific to our major. So at the time I took an introduction to environmental engineering with Professor Kelly Sanders. I ended up switching to industrial and systems engineering midway through that first semester of freshman year, but she was my professor that entire semester, and she was one of the most incredible professors I've had at USC. Extremely qualified with multiple degrees, pretty young and extremely approachable. So that was a really positive experience, and I think it speaks a lot to the impact she made, the fact that I did end up switching my engineering discipline, but she has been someone who's made a really positive impact in my life. My freshman year roommate at the time actually was also an environmental engineer, and she stayed with that path. And I know she's had Professor Sanders for a couple other classes, and we talk about her all the time. She's awesome. So I know that she's definitely someone I would go to if I ever needed anything, or that's just a relationship that I know I'll always have.
Any of the others have a favorite female engineering professor? I guess I have to answer this question because kind of similar, I guess, to Peril. I have my current principal investigator, so the head of the research lab that I work in. Her name is Professor Christina Zavaleta, and I've worked in her lab since my freshman year, and she has just been literally one of the biggest influences on my time in college. She has supported me in everything, well, obviously in research, but beyond research. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times she's written a letter of rec for me for different things I wanted to apply to. And she's been such an amazing role model for me as I watch her lead her own lab, and I'm trying to sort of develop my own leadership skills. And eventually I'm hoping to go into academia. So she has been definitely a mentor for me in that respect. Okay, well, switching gears a bit, I guess my next question for you all is, do you feel a sense of belonging and or community at Viterbi? And what do you think contributes to that? I know Perel and Randy, or you guys kind of mentioned about the being or bonding with your fellow women, your classes, but is there anything else that the others want to mention, why they feel a sense of belonging, or what makes Viterbi feel like a community?
I think the great thing about the first maybe 2 weeks of your freshman year, for those of you who hopefully will be in person, knock on wood, but this can be true for online folks as well. I remember thinking in those first 2 weeks, I have never met more people in my life and had talked so much and seen so many faces than in that moment there. I think it's really interesting how Viterbi is so many disciplines and specialties within it, but at the same time, you get to know people across different majors fairly well, right? I'm Astro, folks in here are CECS or Biomed, but I recognize some of you from math classes or physics classes. I think the value in that is that you definitely get a taste of your own major and what your own major kind of offers in your own intro classes. But stemming on from that, being able to talk to people from as many disciplines as possible is, I think, something Viterbi does well in promoting. The interdisciplinary aspect of teams or research groups isn't something that hit me right away. But looking back at it, it's pretty cool how you're able to get to know a lot of different people with different interests, but still the fundamental kind of goal of engineering, which is to apply phenomena to solve difficult problems.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that I love that I've met so many Viterbi students, specifically women in Viterbi, through other organizations that aren't even specific to Viterbi. I lived in the Honors College my freshman year. I met a bunch of engineering students there. I decided to join Greek life and joined a sorority. I met women in engineering within my sorority who even down the line helped me get an internship and all of that. I have met women in engineering and just engineers in other organizations, like volunteer organizations like Troy Camp, a women's organization, women's leadership organization that puts on a huge annual summit called Own It. I've met engineers through that. So it's really awesome how Viterbi fosters this community that you can find within Viterbi itself, but you can also connect with those people through other classes, other organizations, just other parts of campus life.
I think to piggyback off of what Inez was mentioning, I do agree that Viterbi does foster so many spaces for the different types of engineers that are within Viterbi. I definitely can speak to being an African American female engineer. I find myself, you know, the only one as myself in many courses that I'm in. And so finding community within the Women in Engineering organization or the National Society of Black Engineers organization, both within Viterbi, has been incredibly helpful to me. Those spaces are incredibly supportive, and the network there is amazing, which I'm sure a lot of the other panelists can probably speak to as well. So I think that there's definitely community built, and there's a space for everyone.
And I'd like to add on to that. Before starting at USC, I was invited to participate in the Viterbi Summer Institute, which is hosted by the Center of Engineering Diversity. And I think I found my community pretty immediately, like before school started through that. And that's like where my foundation kind of was built. And like I felt a sense of belonging in that. And then like as school went on, like I did join like other organizations, and I always like had a familiar face in like crowds and stuff through like the Center of Engineering Diversity.
This is actually a really nice segue into my next question. A lot of you mentioned student organizations as being a big part of your sense of belonging. So what student organizations have had the most impact or influence on your experience at USC?
I guess I can start this off since I was just talking about it. I think that the National Society of Black Engineers is it's definitely contributed a lot to my experience here. I think that there's a conference, an annual conference, although this year was virtual. Every year has been an amazing space to find internships, project groups, and so much more. The community that I found there has been very tight-knit and close, similar to the individuals I've met within ECE. And I think that without that particular organization, I don't know where I would be. So I definitely think that NSBE has had a huge impact on my experience here at Viterbi.
I can go off of that too. I think for me, there's been like two orgs that I've really just stuck with this entire time, and that is Quest and IEEE. Quest stands for Queers in Engineering, Science, Technology, and that organization like really just got me through a lot of tough times with their study nights or video game nights every once in a while. And it's been it's an amazing space to sort of like be in the same room with these people as well. And we go to conferences like every year. Two of them actually, OSTEM and Out For You, both are amazing conferences. O For You is actually going on right now virtually. I'm seeing it happen on LinkedIn Live, and it's great. But the other organization is like IEEE, which is the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and Randy was also part of it. We've been on eBoard together, and it's been absolutely amazing. I've honestly poured my heart and soul into that organization, and eventually became president of it these past year and a half. I decided to take a step back, let the club run itself and new people to come in this year. But that organization really kind of made me love my major and love the people in it and love the whole department. Like we're like friends with a lot of people in the department beyond professors, like also academic advisors, and we're just all chilling, having tea together every once in a while. And I think those two organizations really like made me want to stay at USC. I considered transferring out freshman year, but those two organizations really made me want to stick with what was happening. I absolutely love the community that came from both those clubs.
Okay, so we're getting quite a few questions about some difficulties you've had being a woman in engineering. So I guess my next question is, what's a time you faced adversity as a female student in engineering, and how did you handle it? How did you overcome it?
That's a great question. I'm sure everyone has their own personal experiences, but I think one of the biggest shared experiences that we have are kind of that like subliminal adversity, or something that maybe our male peers, it wasn't necessarily explicit, but it's those experiences that kind of compound. So I'll use like more specific examples. For example, maybe like in group projects, having a group of 5, and there's 4 male students and 3 male students and 2 female students. So I've had this happen definitely more than once, or I'm not necessarily the only female student, but the 3 male students kind of take up the lead, have the strongest voices, maybe the strongest personalities, and are just kind of leading the group. So I think it's really easy for them. They're not necessarily explicitly shutting us down, myself and the other female student in my group, but they are accidentally or not purposefully not listening to our opinions. So that's where I've really realized how important it is to really kind of put up a mirror for them to understand exactly what they're doing, sharing how it makes me feel, and helping them understand like what they can do moving forward, and sharing that in kind of a way that they'll be able to digest and actually take that feedback, and not just apply it in my own group dynamic, but in like other groups that they're going to be interacting with other female engineers. I don't know if the rest of the women on the panel can kind of agree or relate to those experiences.
I can definitely relate to those experiences. I can think of like off the bat like a few instances where in a group project I've been like the only woman in the group, and I've instantly been given like the more menial tasks instead of getting to like actual ECE. Like for example, I took a digital audio and signal processing class in EE, and there was only 2 women in it. It was a small class size. I think the other 16 were men, and overall great class, but it was completely group project based. So everything was a group project, and they were pretty long. So you'd be sticking with that group for most of the semester until the last one where you chose your own partner. Luckily, I had a friend in class. I chose him immediately after experiencing my group, and we had a great time afterwards. But I think there's a tendency with some of the men in our class to kind of not think too much, think things through when they say things, or jump in. Like, for example, my partner in one of these group projects like jumped in during my part of the presentation to explain something that I had already explained. And would do that pretty consistently on with other projects we did together as a group, or like during the project, like I would essentially wouldn't get to like speak or add essential input into what we were doing. And oftentimes like the best counter to that is actually like speaking up about it and being like, hey, like, can I like actually get to do something, or can we actually discuss this? Like, please don't talk during my part of the presentation. Just because if you don't kind of jump in and say those things, they might keep doing that to other people and other women in their classes. So it's always a really good idea to kind of like speak up when you can, if it's like safe enough to do so, of course. But yeah, I think those experiences can happen. In ECE, it's pretty common just because of how the class size goes and how many women there are in a major. However, professors help out a lot. I haven't experienced faculty that hasn't been aware of a situation of the woman in engineering. Like they tend to specifically call out like, hey, if like Professor Mark Vedekop is an example, he's very in tune with what's going on on our classes and how in our diversity. And he makes an effort to make sure that everything, the balance is kept and everyone's doing well. So it's never been a bad experience, but you know, I think men do these things, do these microaggressions unknowingly most of the time, and it just takes speaking up to make it go away.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I've definitely had experiences where I was in a group with boys, and they're the ones like trying to do all the hands-on stuff, and I'm just like kind of in the background reading the prompts or reading like the lab. And in those times, I would always just be like, "Hey, do you mind if we take turns and we kind of switch off reading and actually doing?" And another thing I wanted to mention that I've come across, I don't know if you all have, but I feel like my male classmates are always like, we might have the same skill level in, for example, computer aided design, but when I'm asked about it, I'm like, oh, I'm not very good, like I don't know it very well at all. And my male counterparts would be like, oh yeah, like I've done that before. I mean, I'm sure I could figure it out. There's definitely like that difference, and I've seen it in my classes. I've seen it when applying for jobs. I remember one time I was at a Society of Women Engineers conference actually, and I was asking she was this woman, this professional engineer, she was helping me with my resume, and I was like, I don't know if I should put MATLAB on my resume because I've taken a class on it, but I'm not confident in it. And she was like, no, just put it down, and that's just kind of a way to start the conversation about your skill level in MATLAB. Just put it down your resume. So just things like that I think women, we second guess ourselves, that I wanted to bring up. Do any of the others want to share experiences that they have had? If not, we can kind of move on. I want to follow up that kind of more serious question with something fun before we go back into like women engineering. One of the questions that we got was, what do you do for fun on the weekends? I know with COVID, things might be a little different, but maybe when COVID wasn't around, or maybe even you're doing things that are fun and safe now, but what do you do for fun on the weekends in LA?
One of the really fun traditions I have among some folks I work with within a design team is to go out for Korean barbecue after like a particularly stressful week, or just when everyone's just a little too stressed on the inside after some tough finals or after a major deadline is passed, to just kind of go out and eat and commiserate, and then have one of those great bonding times, through that kind of like collective dismay or disappointment. You get a lot of really interesting conversations and little offshoots, and that's how you get to know the like little quirks about someone's personality, or see them beyond like the kind of classroom setting.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. I'm a big foodie myself, and so are my friends. And LA is an awesome city to get to know by going to different restaurants and trying different foods. So definitely, as I've gotten older and became an upperclassman and I actually had my car on campus, it's always fun for me and my friends to go out and just see a different part of town, and kind of doing that through finding new restaurants for sure.
Some of my favorite things to do, like I'll take like the metro to Santa Monica like on the weekends and just get like ramen, or like walk the pier, or like student organization things. Like I am in a club at Scope for computer science, and like we'll have like social gatherings. Yeah.
What does SCOPE stand for?
I don't think it stands for anything. I think it's like,
I wasn't sure.
I think they chose it because it has like SC in the front.
Oh, very creative. Okay, well, we can jump back into the women engineering conversation. So if any of you have had internship experiences or industry experiences, what was it like being a female engineering or a female engineer in industry? Maybe how is it different than being a student in school?
I can talk about, I've had a few internships. I've had 3 in the past 4 years, I believe, and it's pretty great. My first internship happened when I was in high school, and that kind of was what made me decide to be an engineer in the first place. But there are a lot of really, really awesome women And one in particular was a queer woman as well, and she would bring her wife into the office, and it would be like little me, like I was hyped. I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. Like this is what I want out of my life too. And it's really awesome being a woman in the industry as well. Like I haven't faced anything that was negative. There have been definitely these spaces, like as I just narrowed down into electromagnetics, like my field got very male dominated when I was working at Boeing this past summer. But there are so many women out there in those companies that it's really easy to find a mentor kind of off the bat, even if it's not in your specific team. But then I had an internship at Intel, and there, like all my bosses were women, and it was absolutely awesome. Like we would all go hang out, it was a really great experience. And I think companies are bringing way more diversity into their internships than they were before, and it's been even better than ever. And I've had really great experience at all my internships, especially when it came to being a woman there, even if I was the only woman on my team. So yeah. It's been great.
I can speak to that a bit. My first internship was with solar turbines, and in my department, there had to be maybe roughly a little over 100 people, and I was one of very few females in that space, and definitely the only African-American female in that space. However, due to that fact, I felt very supported by other women who worked both within and outside of that department. They would just see me and approach me, or they heard about me through someone else. And so I think that in those spaces, there's so much opportunity for mentorship. And then this past summer, I had an internship at Raytheon. And although it was mostly virtual, I took it upon myself to reach out to what's called the ERGs at the companies, called the Employee Resource Groups. And they represent different diverse groups within a company, such as there's one specifically for women, and then there's even one specifically for African-American people. There's so many that are specific to different identities. So I went ahead and reached out to different ones that I was interested in, and they were so excited. I had several virtual one-on-ones with people who gave me amazing information. I think that also when I was in my project group, I was also paired with, a number of other males, and I was the only female in the group. And that thing that happens where they try to stick you with sort of secretarial work or something like that, menial tasks, definitely happened. And we had to have a moment, which was very uncomfortable, of me telling them this is not what I signed up to do. But it ended up going really well. This really incredibly uncomfortable conversation brought us together in a very real way. So I guess in terms of, as far as internships go, and especially internships that are virtual, I guess you just have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I love that, Randy. And exactly, speaking to that experience, I think a lot of us share that. And something that's important to acknowledge is that this is still evolving, women in engineering. It's so great to see so many women in engineering at a university, especially like USC, but it's something that's going to keep growing. Personally, I've had 2 internships the past 2 summers as a program manager at Microsoft. And that has been an absolutely incredible experience. I would consider to be a pretty more progressive, huge tech company. And even there, I definitely met a lot of women in engineering, but there are so many older people. You start an internship and you realize, wow, I was really used to just being around people my age in college. Like, the people who work at these companies, they could be like practically any age, come from anywhere. And so if you think about it, those people have been in industry for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so back when they started, that just wasn't necessarily the case to see women in engineering. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of these experiences, like, you have to take it as an opportunity to continue pushing this forward. There are going to be times when you have to have those tough conversations with someone you've been paired with maybe it's your manager, maybe it's your teammate, or another coworker in the industry, in your work. But it's our responsibility to be brave enough to have those conversations, and to really like pave the way for the women who are to come after us. So I would say from my experience, I've had an incredible internship experience, but I've definitely seen that there's still, we've come a long way, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, and that's up to us.
Yeah, and thank you, Inez, for sharing that piece of advice. I definitely resonate with what you said, in that I interned for Edwards Life Sciences, which is a medical device company based in Irvine, this past summer. It was a virtual internship, and I noticed that everyone like above me were men, but then like all of the interns I made friends with and who were in research and development with me were all women. So you could definitely see there's a difference, and the generation we're in now is starting to be, women are starting to come through. So it's definitely exciting to see. And I think Inez's comments lead me to my next question. And shout out to Raquel here for asking it. What are some things you wish you would have known entering the field of engineering as a female? And I'm actually going to direct this to Trisha. As an ambassador of Society of Women Engineers, do you have any insight into what you wish you would have known? Or you could, any advice you have really for young students who haven't entered college yet and are thinking about engineering?
Yeah, I'll say one thing. We've been talking a lot about the community you make with women in your major and on campus, but all the guys, they're not scary. They're very approachable. And I'll just give like one anecdote. I remember sitting in the computer lab working on a SolidWorks project, and I was totally lost. I did not know what I was doing, and I was getting very like anxious and nervous about how I was going to get this done on time. And so then I turned to the person sitting next to me, and it was a guy, and I just said, "Hey, do you know how to do this?" And he said, "No, I'm not sure." But then the guy who was sitting in front of us, he heard, and then he said, "Oh, here, let me help you." And he got out of his seat and he came around and he actually helped me figure it out. And so I just think it's important to know that you can reach out to people, you can reach out to men, you can reach out to women in your major, even if you don't know them, if they're older than you. And I think if I'd known that earlier, I probably would have finished that assignment much quicker. And I think that's just a good lesson to learn for anything, that when you need help, you can reach out to people, and just don't be afraid, because I think that's something about Viterbi and probably a lot of engineering colleges. We're all just here to help each other and support each other. And I think if I knew that before, I would have definitely saved a lot of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have some tidbits of wisdom?
It's difficult to have those hard conversations, I think, when you're in a group situation and you're not really sure maybe if the group dynamics are involved in like your research group or student design team or class project. But I find just directly asking people like, hey, let's get coffee or lunch or Zoom and just talk about what's going on gets you clarification, I would say. Because if it's a misunderstanding, then you find out. And if it's intentional, then you find out. And either way, you're able to kind of prepare yourself and think like, why is this experience happening? How can I navigate this? And then is there a resolution? And if not, then how can I grow from this and become stronger so that in the future, when I see this in industry or maybe with a different group, I'm able to kind of recognize it earlier on and ideally prevent things for like this from happening for maybe younger classes. I think train of thought left the station, but it's slowly coming back. I would say that having those hard conversations and being able to call folks out when just group dynamics are going difficult or you're not really sure what's going on is, I think, the best kind of tack to take.
kind of going off of that, I would say it's never too late, you know. There's been so many times where I've experienced something where I'm like, oh dang, like I should have said something. Now it's kind of like past the moment, to be too like awkward to bring up after it's been a few days, or we already finished our project or something like that. But it's really never too late. And I think not getting down on yourself and just really realizing like there'll always be another opportunity to speak up and to recognize like, oh man, I didn't do it last time, like let me do it this time. You know, this is a good time to bring this up, because there's never a wrong time to speak up and advocate for yourself and for other people, whether those are other women in engineering, or whether it's other people who are in, maybe it's your ethnic group, or in your I don't know, just anyone. You're speaking up, you don't realize how many people you're advocating for, not just for yourself. So just remember, like, it's always important to speak up. And then going back kind of to the question at hand, I would say I wish I knew that the people in my classes in the beginning of college, I would end up having so many classes with later down the line. Obviously not everyone, but there's been people just so I see in my classes time and time again. And I almost wish I developed those personal relationships a little bit sooner, because now it's senior year, we have so many group projects. There's people who I'm working with who I'm like, we've been seeing each other in class since like way back when we took Calc like 2, back freshman year, whatever it may be. So I would just encourage you guys to really get to know the people around you. You might never see them again, but there's a good chance you're going to see them in another class. You'll know them from another like organization. So those personal relationships just go such a long way. And even with professors too, you might have them 2 times, 3 times for multiple classes. So just personal relationships.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing that. I'm sure the people watching really appreciated that. So it actually looks like we only have time for one more question. And a lot of people in the Q&A have been asking why we all chose USC. And so I'm actually going to have all of you answer this question, maybe starting with, I don't know, who wants to go first? I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
I can go first.
Okay, great. Why USC?
Yeah, I think USC was just the perfect blend of mixing academics as well as social life. There's a very good emphasis on like work hard, play hard. It's not just studying engineering school 24/7. That's not what the environment is like. Even within Viterbi, there's a lot of social things that you do. Like Ava mentioned, she would go out with her friends for ramen, and it's just like that kind of community is something that's very important, and I think that sets USC apart. And it's just a great way of getting the full experience of what like a full well-rounded college experience should be, is an equal balance. And I think USC has that balance, and that's why I really wanted to come here.
I definitely want to echo that sentiment and talk about how Viterbi has that balance between academics, and for me, it's career development and professional networks. I think one of the biggest things that people speak of when they speak of USC is the network, and I'm here to tell you that is a real true thing. I think that Viterbi definitely does a great job at preparing me not only to be a successful engineer, but to also be a successful professional. What steps do I need to take to communicate effectively? How can I make my resume stand out? I think that speaking with other engineering students, a big thing they don't get is that professional development and the network. That the same as what we get. So I think that's definitely what drew me into Viterbi, is that not only is it a great school academically, but also in so many other ways.
I can speak to like a different side of things. I actually did not want to go to USC. When I first came here, it was kind of like the school that had the best financial aid for me, and I got a scholarship, so it was kind of like the best deal, essentially, for me. And I ended up considering to transfer within my first semester, just because, you know, I wasn't quite finding my friend group, and it was a little bit difficult at first. But it's kind of crazy how, in the end of the day, I would never have gone. I don't want to go to another school at all. Like, I'm fully committed to USC, and it has become like the college of my dreams for me. And I think that's like a different story to tell, because sometimes you just gotta give it a chance, even if you might not consider it your first choice, because you never really know what you're gonna find. And I think it's really you that makes the experience worth it at the end of the day. And USC just had such an amazing group of people that I decided I didn't want to leave. I ended up making some incredible friends. I'm actually living in a house of 7 boys. It's been great. I know we spoke a lot about how we're like all these different encounters, but at the end of the day, we're like all no different, and it's been awesome. And I think it's those boys that I'm living with. It's all the people I met in my classes. It's all the orgs I joined. It's all the professors I've had. It's everyone. It's everything. Like, you can't necessarily narrow it down to a single thing. I think it's the beautiful orchestra that Viterbi is, and that USC is, that kind of makes it for me. Individually, you might get down on certain things, but that's the same for any other university. And USC really has that cooperative instead of competitive environment, which is what made me really love this place, is that no one's out here to get you or to snake a grade from you, but everyone's here to really help you, and everyone has their own amazing experiences to add to the color. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, one of the biggest reasons that USC was an attractive school for me was also because I was receiving money through scholarships. So it was pretty, like I said, it definitely made the school attractive. And when I was talking with my parents about deciding what school to go to, but I think the real tipping point was that school spirit. Obviously, big athletics, the football team, which was something that I loved at my high school, but also spirit in the sense that everyone is so passionate, and there's so much diversity in what where students come from and what students come to study. But whatever it may be, everyone is just so passionate, and you can feel it in the air. You can sense it immediately when you start talking to people and meeting new students. So that was something super important for me, and having that diversity of a student body for me was so important, to go somewhere that wasn't just an engineering school, that I would be meeting students who were art students, who were biology students, who were business students. And at the end of the day, I look around me, and my best friend groups, they're so diverse, and I've gone involved in so many organizations that are both engineering related and not engineering related. And for me, like someone mentioned earlier, that's just what I was really looking for, was a well-rounded college experience. And I think I've gotten that from USC and so much more.
Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to join the aerospace industry and work on planes and rockets. So USC's ties to all the aerospace companies and the just around the country, and the alumni network that you have. The Trojan family is very much real. And I think what attracted me most to USC was the astronautical engineering major in USC, Rocket Propulsion Laboratory, and that whole kind of ecosystem. But beyond Viterbi, what I loved about USC was that they had so much to offer, not just within the engineering department, but outside as well. I think you can spend 4 years and go to every single club meeting and event and still not get even a taste of what everything has to offer. There's so much to do and so much to see. And I'll never get to see it all, but I'm happy with the variety of experiences that you can have within USC, and how easy it is to kind of taste something or move on to something else, and just meeting people from amazing backgrounds and skill sets, and be able to kind of pack that all into a well-rounded college experience.
I think the main thing that stood out to me when I first heard about USC was that it was 2 hours from Disneyland. That's a pretty big selling point I think they have. Okay, dream school done. But actually, I looked into it, and I probably should have known this, but they're #1 for video game programming in the nation or something, or the world, I don't know. But they're pretty up there, and that's exactly what I wanted to study. So I was this is perfect, and it's close to Disney or Disneyland, yeah. And yeah, it's also close to a lot of tech stuff. So Silicon Valley and stuff like that. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know like where I'm going to go work after school. But I'm just like, oh yeah, like I can stay like in LA or like Orange County because like there's a lot of tech stuff going on. Like there's many options for me. So
Yeah, hearing all of you say these things makes me sad to be a senior. And I think for me, I agree with everything everyone said. And I think Ava slightly touched on this, but for me, I chose USC because I wanted a really great engineering program, but I also wanted to take classes in the humanities. I really like to read and write, and Viterbi was really awesome about encouraging its students to minor outside of engineering. So I actually have a minor in classical perspectives, which is basically just classics, and it's been really nice to explore that side of myself and just that side of the world, I guess. So with that, that was our final question. I know time went really quickly. We hope you enjoyed the live chat tonight and gained some insight on what it's like to be a female engineering student in Viterbi. And as promised, we are going to give you some resources that we have in Viterbi for women engineers. So we have some organizations and resources in Viterbi, like I think we've mentioned the Society of Women Engineers. We have Women in Computing, Athena Hacks. They put on an all-women hackathon. Viterbi also has a women engineering organization that puts on a number of programs throughout the year. And finally, we have a podcast called Viterbi Voices that you can tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud, and you'll find more perspectives on women in engineering there. So with that, thank you again for tuning in tonight. We wish you the best of luck on your college applications. We hope you stay safe and healthy, and as always, fight on.
And we're back. Thanks, Domini, for that great episode.
Yes, thank you for doing that, and great job hosting it. I think that it was fun to watch you kind of go through the different questions and get out there. I mean, you had a lot of people, a couple hundred people that were watching this live, right?
Yeah, it was exciting to see such a big turnout. And I thought the panelists did such an amazing job, expressing their honest opinions on what happens in the classroom. And honestly, it was pretty positive. And it seems like there's this trend toward more women in companies, in engineering roles, and women advocating for themselves. So I was really happy to hear that.
So I know that you got a number of questions. There's no way that you were ever able to answer all of the questions that came up, but what was one of the questions that maybe what was either like the most asked question, or what was one that maybe you wish you had a little more time to go back into?
Well, actually, one question that I wanted to ask, I didn't get time to at the end, but was female role models. I wanted to go around and ask all the panelists who their female role model was. I really bummed we ran out of time, but that was something that was asked.
Who's yours?
Michelle Obama. I know it's not engineering related, but I just think the work she has done, both during being First Lady and also afterward, is really inspiring.
Audrey, do you have one?
Oh gosh. Well, I do love the Michelle Obama podcast, so I I like that part of it. Honestly, I don't know if I have one specifically. I think this is like a way big shout out to the past, but my first year in Viterbi, my MATLAB class was taught by a professor named Ashley Moore Williams. And she was super cool. At the time, she worked at the Aerospace Corp, and I think that was a really good thing for me to have that first year, to have a role model like that early on. So
that's cool. It's interesting to kind of watch what I think society as a whole is getting better with representation, and that probably previous generations couldn't even have female role models, specifically in engineering or any other profession as you go. And so the fact that it's might even be getting harder to find female role models because there's so many opportunities is a good thing. I mean, I only watch it again mostly from the eyes of my 5-year-old and watching her, like, what shows she's watching, even in movies she's watching, and seeing how there are some really fantastic shifts in representation just in pop culture, let alone the idea of women running companies, women being interviewed for things, women having significant roles in politics and government. And this is all just so amazing to watch, so amazing to see. And I can't believe it's taken us this long as a society to at least start to move towards the right movement of this. So I applaud all the work that you two have done, and specifically all the women that we've had on the podcast for this episode, and everyone out there that is thinking about engineering or computer science. I think what's best is you may feel alone. I think it's something that came up like when you're in high school and like you're the only one, and that sometimes people find their communities in college. There's a lot that are here at USC and more at other engineering schools across the country. So thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing. And thank you so much for sharing these stories and creating this as a platform to do so. So I think it's really fantastic. Thanks for sharing the episode, Dominique.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Well, let's get out. I don't think we have any major updates right now, so I think we could just call it quits for this episode, and we'll see you next time, everybody.